I am at the Dakota Air Territory Museum in Minot, North Dakota. One of the exhibits they have is a full-size replica of the plane that the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk. I have no idea if there's a specific name for this. Maybe there is, but this thing is, quite frankly, a lot bigger than I thought it would be. And it actually was catapulted into the air. I think they had a later model that actually took off by itself. But this is pretty amazing. I never thought I'd see something like this. It's pretty cool. We are looking at the Wildcat here. It was a fighter that we had at the beginning of World War II, primarily in the Pacific. It fought the Japanese Zeros and didn't really have the acrobatic ability of the Zeros, but it was tough, and it had 4 machine guns. The pilots were very, very, very brave, and it had the folding wing, so they could fit more of them on an airplane than some of the others that had straight wings. So we had these guys in abundance, and they held us until the Hellcats were available, which were faster, flew higher, more machine guns, was an all-around better airplane. But this always will hold a spot in my heart for the missions they took care of, protecting our carriers and our fleet until the Hellcat showed up. Right now I'm standing in front of a submarine Spitfire Mark 9C. This one was assigned to a Polish squadron at England, or did escort roles over France before the Normandy invasion. It was an exceptional airplane. It was a spectacular interceptor. This thing could get from the ground to where the enemy was as fast or faster than anything that was in the sky. It looks like this version has the 20mm cannon rather than the 6 or 8 303 machine guns. It was a very acrobatic airplane. The wing itself had a specific design to it where it was a lot wider, and it helped it to, wider in the middle, and it helped it to climb and get where it needed to go very fast. The British really loved this. We have a couple of P-51s here at the Dakota Air Territory Museum. Here are the specifics on it. They were very fast. They were able to make it to Germany and back with external gas tanks. They actually called it the flying gas can. 6 machine guns, or it could carry a bomb load of 2,000 pounds or half-inch rockets. These planes were basically what allowed us to get our bombers to Germany back safely, at least as safe as possible. We've got here is the B version. You can see the canopy. It was streamlined. It wasn't the bubble version. I think we have another one that I'm going to look at in a minute. Yeah, the one you're going to see in a second has the bubble, so you'll see the difference in the cockpit at greater visibility. Okay, the previous Mustang P-51 was a B version. This is a D version. It primarily had the canopy. If you can see, the canopy is different from the one we just looked at. It still had, again, the same range for blade propeller. It was very fast, very acrobatic. The Germans would see him coming. There's a story that Hermann Goering, the head of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force in World War II, said he knew, as he put it, the jig was up when he saw Mustangs flying over Berlin, escorting our bombers. We would send up to 1,000 bombers at a time and have up to 700 escort fighters. So they were very well protected against pretty much anything the Germans could throw up, with the exception of flak, which from what I heard scared more pilots than the enemy. As is listed here, the Hawker Hurricane was definitely the unsung hero of the Royal Air Force during World War II. At the beginning of the war, they had a whole bunch of Hurricanes. It was their transition fighter from the biplanes to the mono wings that you see. It actually had some canvas on it, on the wings, and it actually shot down, because there were more of them, it shot down more airplanes, I believe, during the Battle of Britain than the Spitfire did. It wasn't quite as fast, it wasn't quite as maneuverable, but it was tough. If you can see here, they had slots for 4 machine guns. They had 8 Browning 303s. The British had millions of bullets left over from World War I, so they used the 303 in their airplanes. They had the philosophy of the more bullets in the air, the better. So that's kind of how they worked things. They have another P-51 at the Aviation Museum. It's actually a Thunderbird. This airplane was actually owned by Jimmy Stewart. And this airplane has set records for speed back in the 50s. It's a standard 51. Obviously all the military equipment, the guns and stuff have been removed. But these planes were very popular in air racing after the war, because there were a whole ton of them, and they could soup them up in ways that they couldn't during the war because of advances in technology. And they were able to just use these airplanes. And I mean, there's some around. Obviously, you've seen 3 of these today, but they're nowhere near as numerous as they used to be through age, as things wear out. And also, unfortunately, the skill of repairing them is gone. Okay, the last airplane of the day is the P-40 Warhawk, Tomahawk / Kitty Hawk, whatever hawk you want to call it. It actually was in use at the beginning of the war. If you see the movie Pearl Harbor or Tora 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 or whatever, Attack on Pearl Harbor, these planes are definitely part of it. They were very rugged. They were actually the first American airplane to have the shark on the nose. It's rumored that the Australians were the first ones to do that, and then we just kind of copied them. But what we're looking at had 6 50 caliber machine guns. Some had only 4 with a couple of 30 cals, but these planes were rugged. They were fast for the time, and basically they helped us to stay in the war until we could get round 2 of our generation planes. Okay, this is the 3rd P-51 that you're going to see today at the Dakota Aviation Museum. It's another D model. It has a rack for bombs primarily. It was used as a ground attack aircraft occasionally. There actually was a model called, I think it was the Invader, that was specifically designed as a ground attack. Why somebody thought putting an airplane that had a water-cooled radiator in a ground attack role was beyond me, because quite frankly, the radiator gets a little nick in it and you're probably grounded. When with the P-47, which had an air-cooled engine that was just massive, there's been reports that pilots came back with 4 of the 12 cylinders shot out, and they still managed to get it back. The person who's giving us tours of the airplanes today was kind enough to let me just kind of go behind the scenes and get a reverse shot of this Hurricane. I mean, this was just an absolutely massive airplane. I have no idea how big it is at the moment, but just let me see the size of my hand, next to it. It was big, but it was solid. It could bring the pilots back. It was fast enough and agile enough. I mean, it wasn't, it actually wouldn't win an award for its aerobatic capability, but it was able to get the job done. And like I said in my previous video, this thing shot down a lot of German, both fighters and bombers. From what they heard, the Spitfires tended to go for the fighters, but it was the Hurricanes that went after the bombers. Okay, what we're looking at here is one of the things that, believe it or not, helped us to win the war against the Germans in particular. This is an external gas tank. We see them all the time today, but trust me, back in World War II in the 40s, something like this was just brand new technology. And what we're looking at now, it's metal. If I were to tap on it, you would hear the metal, but The ones in World War II were made out of paper, some kind of paper mache that had a chemical in it that kept it from dissolving, because number one, they only needed it to get them there, and then when they were fighting, they of course dropped it for better aerodynamics, but they also didn't want the Germans to be able to use the metal for anything else. So paper was good enough. Obviously today we use metal because we're not throwing them away, and we reuse them, but that's a story of how that was. What we're looking at here is a 50 caliber machine gun, airplane variety. It's as small as they could possibly make it. It's as light as they could possibly make it, but it still fires a 50 caliber bullet, which are over here. If you do a comparison, it's a little bit bigger. It's about 1.5 times the size of my finger. And these things can go through concrete. They can go through light armored metal. They had all kinds of these bullets. They had ones that were tracers, so you could see them as they were being fired. They had armor piercing. They had explosives in them. They had everything you could imagine. And if you've ever heard the phrase whole 9 yards, the rumor is that there was a certain airplane that had 9 yards worth of ammunition that could be fired at the enemy. And when they had given somebody all the ammunition they had, they said they got the whole 9 yards.
I get meat.
What you're looking at here is the Duchess of Dakota. It is a DC-3, C-47, Spooky, Spectre. There's just a zillion names for this airplane. I believe it was Dwight D. Eisenhower, which said that one of the greatest things we had during the war was this airplane, because it allowed us to move cargo and people around whenever we wanted to. And it was something that the enemy didn't have. And actually, our logistics ability is what won us the war. We were able to outproduce anybody. I believe the United States had such a great ability for that. We could have basically outproduced the rest of the world during the war, from cars and tractors to airplanes and tanks.